if we get in one of these exponential bubbles in 2025, and I see that we may get into one, right? There are a lot of elements for us to get into one. Trump getting elected, the adoption of a Bitcoin standard, the change in the SEC, Dubai starting to stack Bitcoin. There could be a number of catalysts that really bring us into like a full-blown just mania trend like we had in 2017. And if we do get into that, I don't think math tells us really, we're going to stop at 200,000 or 250,000 or 300,000. We might go to 500,000. Now, I do think the math tells us with the power law, kind of 500,000 would be kind of the top in the next couple of years. Why?
The next Bitcoin bull run could be unlike any we've seen, potentially driving prices to $500,000. That's the latest forecast from Wall Street veteran and Bitcoin analyst Fred Krueger. He believes several factors could fuel a massive Bitcoin surge in 2025, including a potential Trump re-election, increased adoption of Bitcoin as a financial standard, changes in U.S. regulatory policies, and Dubai's growing interest in accumulating Bitcoin. If these conditions align, they could spark a wave of enthusiasm and speculative buying, similar to the rally in 2017. In this scenario, Bitcoin prices could soar, possibly reaching $500,000. However, Krueger cautions that if Bitcoin reaches such heights, a sharp correction could follow, as has happened in the past. Stick around until the end of the video to hear whether Krueger believes another Bitcoin bubble is on the horizon and if there's reason for concern.
Stop. You don't have time. Don't miss out this 2025 bull run. Educate yourself first ahead of the crowd. We have created the ultimate step-by-step crypto cheat guide that will guide you this bull run. Unlock the secrets of crypto and make smarter investments today. Now by clicking on the link below to get your exclusive copy just under $10.
So we have this phenomena of halvings happening every 4 years and the bear markets happening every, let's call it 12 to 16 months afterwards, right? So I think if you're going to just continue this logic, you would say, well, the fourth halving started in April of 2024, and so the bear market should start, 16 months later. That would put us in sort of August of 2025, just keeping exactly with that timing. And I think a lot of people in Bitcoin are just obsessed with this for a lot of different reasons. And I think we really need to back down sort of the analysis here, because we can easily just get spooked with these three events. The halvings are programmed, so they're every 4 years. And people sort of think, well, maybe the bear market is programmed right after the halving as well. And so I think there's two fundamental questions, and I posted these in a Twitter tweet. The first question is, do we believe that the halvings are the creator of the bull markets? Do we believe that they are the fundamental reason that the bull markets are created? They have this amazing power of creating these bull markets. And second, do we believe that this bull market, like the last three, will end very quickly? So let's take these questions independently. Now, the first question is the halving. Are the halvings important? Well, I would argue the first halving and the second halving were very significant, right? Because they were an enormous amount of supply was reduced, and especially with the first halving, there wasn't an enormous market before the first halving, the enormous secondary market for Bitcoin. So this is really how Bitcoin was produced. And so when we had this massive supply shock, it made an enormous difference. If you go now to 2028, there's going to be a supply shock, and I use the word supply shock in air quotes, of going from 450 Bitcoin to 225 Bitcoin. Now, perhaps the price of Bitcoin will be a lot higher, but still, we're talking 200 Bitcoin per day. This is nowhere near as much as it was, say, in 2016. At this point, 95% of the Bitcoin has been mined, and I think the impact of this supply shock of halving will not be as big. So it's just not clear that the next halving will create another bull market in the same sense. And I think what will create it is much more likely just liquidity and financial adoption by TradFi, right? And I'm not even sure of that, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that the mechanism of bull market is created by having not so clear, right? Now, what about the sort of the length of the bull market, right? Well, I think what happens in these bull markets, and we've had three of them, it's not an enormous amount of data, right? We have three bull markets, is that we have a very unsustainable exponential rise. And it really is exponential. And I think Giovanni's pointed this out very well. It's going up by 1% per day. And it's this sort of exponential thing. The bubble will pop. You know it's going to pop, and it does pop. The problem is you just don't know when it's going to pop. But if you get into this kind of hyper-frenzied vertical movement like we've had in 2017, you know it will pop. You just don't know when. And unfortunately, the power law, I don't think, tells you really that much about when it's going to pop, because we still haven't had enough bubbles. And I think they're just notoriously hard to time, in my opinion. And I'm not sure the math does that much of good in terms of when bubbles will pop. And I think that's true with Bitcoin. I think that's true with smoking chicken fish or Nvidia. I don't know. There's a lot of bubbles that happen, and you know they're a bubble, but you just can't tell when they're going to pop.
There's also a possibility that the 2025 Bitcoin cycle could unfold differently than in the past. The Bitcoin market is more mature today than it was in 2017, with more institutional players involved and greater overall stability. If we don't see a speculative bubble like before, Bitcoin might experience more measured growth, with steady gains throughout 2025 and possibly extending into 2026 and 2027. Technical analyst Gert van Leegen suggests Bitcoin could surge by over 472% in the next year. He explains in one of his tweets that Bitcoin is currently following a step-like formation, characterized by periods of consolidation followed by upward movement. This pattern resembles steps in an ascending trend. Van Leegen has also identified an ascending broadening wedge in the current market, a technical pattern that historically breaks to the upside 79% of the time and continues the prior trend 67% of the time. Based on his analysis, the target price for Bitcoin could be $300,000, a substantial increase from current levels. Do you agree with this analysis? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's return to Fred Krueger for more insight.
And I think if we get in one of these exponential bubbles in 2025, and I see that we may get into one, right? There are a lot of elements for us to get into one. Trump getting elected, the adoption of a Bitcoin standard, the change in the SEC, Dubai starting to stack Bitcoin. There could be a number of catalysts that really bring us into like a full-blown just mania trend like we had in 2017. And if we do get into that, I don't think math tells us really, we're going to stop at 200,000 or 250,000 or 300,000. We might go to 500,000. Now, I do think the math tells us with the power law, that kind of 500,000 would be kind of the top in the next couple of years. Why? Because 500,000 would be kind of 2 times trend line, and we've never seen any of the previous bubbles go beyond 2 times trend line. Just doesn't seem likely. And it does seem that if anything, the percentage to trend line seems to be diminishing. So I would say 500,000 would be a high. It's still within the power law. It's not like all our models are going to be broken because you hit 500,000, but it could happen, right? And if it happens, when it breaks, I do suspect that just like any bubble, we will revert back down through the trend line, and we will stabilize at something like 1 standard deviation down below. And that would be just extremely painful. That would be a 75% retracement from the high. It's going to be brutal. On the other hand, maybe we don't have one of these speculative bubbles. We're not in one now, right? We are 20% below trend line right now. We are getting some much more rational players come into this market than in the 2017 bubble. We are getting more sustainability than we had in the last bubble, where we had a lot of schemes like FTX and Do Kwon, which were unraveling and which were not sustainable. So, perhaps we don't get in this massive bubble behavior. So that's all. This is possible. If that happens, I don't see why we couldn't continue on into 2026 and have, say, a 40% increase in 2025 or 50% increase in 2025 and another 40% increase in 2026 or maybe also in 2027. So I don't think these things are incompatible with the power law. Again, trying to predict bubbles I feel is hard, and I will let other people do that. What I think I'm going to do is probably go with the Kelly criterion rebalancing. I don't have to predict. So what I don't want to do is sell all my Bitcoin based on some notion that we're at a bubble. I don't want to do it. What I want to do is at most rebalance to something like a 70% allocation. So there's a lot of math for why Kelly is a good strategy.
Whether 2025 ushers in a new era for Bitcoin or simply another temporary surge remains uncertain. However, with potential political shifts and growing interest from global investors, the conditions for a significant price movement seem to be aligning. If these catalysts converge, the real question may not be whether Bitcoin reaches $500,000, but how long it stays there before the inevitable correction. As we approach the new year, keeping a close eye on these trends will be crucial for anyone invested in or following the crypto market. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.